Welcome to the final video of week 5. I'm sure you're sad to see these pretty faces go, but unfortunately for you, we do have a 4 video limit for this week. That's all that our agents have allowed us to do. But before we go, we're going to give you some NFL stacks for this weekend. We've already given you quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. Now we're going to make it all come full circle. But before we do, we got to tell you about the NFL package that Jim loves so very much. He won't stop talking about it, so I got to advertise it. Things that it includes: position rankings, projections, premium cheat sheets, must-have tools like DVP rankings, points per attempt, red zone utilization, and such. Optimized DFS lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel. Access to player ownership percentage after the Thursday night kickoff. So let me give you a screenshot of this beautiful image. We have got rotocurves.com/NFL-trial, and now it's going to my other pictures. Just wonderful. That was a fail.
You booched it.
I booched it. That was supposed to be a solid image staying up there, but you can imagine it's still on the screen. I'm looking at it. Optimized DFS lineups and tools, rotocurve.com /NFL-trial. You'll get a free trial of all the stuff that I tried to show you, but I failed because apparently I don't know how to work technology, but Jim does, and Jim knows how to work DFS lineups. He knows which stacks are going to work for you this week, so why don't you tell us?
Yeah, I would have gotten Zach Britton in there earlier, okay? I know what I'm yeah, no, I mean, I think one stack that we're going to agree on here would be an affordable stack for tournaments would be going with Fitzpatrick and Brandon Marshall. Just in terms of how game script could go, there is even with the interceptions and stuff, we don't really care. We're not playing real football here. This is for really purely statistics. In terms of the volume that we can expect, 40 passes, maybe 10, maybe a third of those go to Brandon Marshall. So I just love the floor there, and the ceiling's obviously high. This is a guy with 14 touchdowns last year. I mean, you could really, like you said, you could see it be a real tilt game. For the first half, you're getting nothing out of Fitzpatrick, even for the first 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, they could connect for 2 touchdowns and make your day. That's the kind of stack that I look at between those guys. A little bit more of a fun stack that I think, we could get a share of Ben Roethlisberger and Sammy Coates. I think there's something there. I mean, last year we saw the stack of Martavis Bryant and Big Ben take down some big tournaments. And I think he's not the talent that Martavis is, but he's working that role. He's working that 20-yard per target role. And really, if they get going and if they find an inefficiency and if they get him schemed against, Revis and he keeps turning him around, Big Ben, we saw it last week. They don't take it easy on you. They're going to keep beating up on inefficiencies. So if they notice a coverage inefficiency, I think they'll attack it over and over and over. And it's something that you can appreciate with saving a lot of money. I mean, talk about a difference in price between Coates and Antonio Brown. Obviously, the scale of floor is a lot different, but we're chasing ceilings here. And there's an argument to be made that Coates has a similar ceiling in the sense of he has a 150 multi-touchdown ceiling.
Yeah, and there's definitely a case to be made that you use at least 2 of the weapons with Roethlisberger. We've already seen multiple times that he can sustain multiple guys. Brown doesn't have to get in the end zone to have a monster game. He can have 11 for 130 moving the chains and throw 2 deep balls to Sammy Coates, and you're going to be happy about all of it. So I think that's one where you could go Roethlisberger, Bell, Coates, Roethlisberger, Bell, Brown. You could go Roethlisberger, Brown, Coates. You could go 2 receivers. I think there's enough there for him to sustain it. We got to talk about Brady. There's some different ways to do it. We already alluded to the Brady, James White, Julian Edelman stack. I think whichever stack I do, I probably want Edelman because I can't see a scenario where he doesn't get his. And I'm worried enough about this Rob Gronkowski hamstring that I'm willing to go Brady, Edelman, Martellus Bennett. I think Martellus Bennett's going to be a big part of this offense moving forward. The fact that Gronk only ran 14 routes last week when the team was scoring 0 points kind of tells you what kind of shape he's in. So I don't like hearing all this negative news about the hamstring. I think a lot of people are going to be fooled by that and use Gronk in tournaments this week. If he proves, all of a sudden he's healthy in 3 days from now, I'm going to look like an idiot, but I don't see it happening. So I think Brady stacks have to be at the top of the list. And then I mentioned Carson Wentz, man. I really really like him this week. I like him to Matthews. I like him to Ertz. And I think in a game against the Lions, especially if they're playing from behind, I think it's a game where he can sustain them both. Ertz is kind of a cheaper tight end where all you need is 60 and a touchdown to be happy. I think, you could get more than that, maybe 60 and two, maybe 100 and a touchdown. And I think Matthews is pretty solid. And if Wentz decides to go off, Stafford usually turns games, especially at home, into shootouts. And I know the Eagles defense has been good, but Stafford's the record holder for most yards in first 100 games. So he'll probably have 300 yards. He'll probably throw a couple of touchdowns, and Wentz will have to match it. So I think that's where I'm starting with my stacks. Jim, what else you got for us?
Well, I have a question for you. Okay, so if we're talking about, Derek Carr is in a good position. There's really not many ways to deny that. You were on Carr all offseason. He's grading out really, really high on Pro Football Focus. I'm checking it now. I think he might even overtaken Wentz as number one. But, yeah, he's number one right now on Pro Football Focus and quarterback grading. He's like obviously there's no more hyperbole needed. He's been winning on the road. He's been throwing for multiple touchdowns all the time. So the question is, what's the stack with him that you prefer? I mean, I've been on Cooper all year, and it hasn't really worked. Last week, obviously, Crabtree was the tournament winner. Who do you prefer but what's the stack that you find in Oakland that works?
Well, the one that I liked, at least at the beginning of the week before the Verrett news, is I wanted to include Walford in one because I think he is a sneaky one to sneak into the end zone this week. I think my initial thought was to go back to Crabtree, but now without Verrett, I do think that people have pretty much picked up that Cooper's been the one who hasn't been getting it done. So I think many are going to shift to Crabtree, and I don't think Carr is done with Amari Cooper. So I think Cooper this week, and I know we've been kind of saying it for a few, but I really think that finally now with the Verrett news, with the fact that this San Diego defense allows a lot of yardage, I think this is finally the Cooper week, and I think you could go Carr, Cooper, Walford.
Yeah, I was just saying, if we're talking about Vegas trends, that's the game that you're going to want to get at least one share of in a tournament. He's a guy that I really like. One unique stack that I like, it's not your quarterback stack, would be, the correlation between running back and defense. How about, you've been talking about for tournaments, how about like Garrett Blount and the Patriots defense? Just in terms of how, 10-point favorites on the road against a rookie quarterback. The defense is chalk. There's not really much to say about that. I mean, Denver kind of loses some zeal facing a top offense. Even if we don't believe Ryan and the Atlanta offense is going to do well in Denver, they're still averaging the most yards, points, and snaps and all those things. So it's not exactly agreeable for upside. So the Patriots seem like the most upside-laden defense. And then, like you said, that also plays into the fact turnovers and field position plays into the fact that we could see Blount get one of those 20-carry multi-touchdown games. So I kind of think that's an interesting little stack to consider. Other than that, it's Eli and Odell Beckham if I'm going to try to win a tournament and I can afford that, just because I think those two are due and they're going to work. And if they do go off, it's going to require them doing it together.
Yeah, I'll stick with that. I wasn't planning to go here, but I think in most of my lineups, I'm going to have McKinnon. I'm going to have the Minnesota defense. So if we're sticking to a correlation like that, I mean, Minnesota defense has been absolutely dominant. We already mentioned how cheap McKinnon is, specifically on DraftKings. So there's a correlation for you there. One we haven't mentioned, Aaron Rodgers to Jordy Nelson. I really like them at home. I do think if Aaron Rodgers is going to have a big game, it's going to be more than Jordy Nelson. You could probably add, I don't know, Giants have been susceptible to tight ends. Maybe it's a Jared Cook week where he finally scores in there. But
I think Cook's still banged up, but maybe Richard
Rodgers, yeah. So maybe you throw a tight end in there, but I think the highest upside play is Rodgers to Nelson. I remember that Al Zeidenfeld $1 million winning lineup just had a quarterback receiver. So I'm content with just going with two of them who are probably going to be under owned. The other one I like is Andrew Luck to Philip Dorsett. I do think this is a big week for him. I think people are giving the Bears defense way too much credit so far, having watched them. I mean, they do look a little improved, but I still don't think they're good enough to compete with a quarterback like Andrew Luck. I'm off the Bears every week. I'm a self-hating Bears fan. Every week they've been getting it done, but Andrew Luck is just too good to look mediocre like this for an extended period. I know Moncrief was kind of his guy, but he should still be able to get it done. I like Dorsett to take the top off this defense. Did we miss anything else? Because those are pretty much it for me.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it in terms of what we've covered. I mean, if you want to get one more weird cheap stack in there, it could be if you can find the Denver receiver that you're most comfortable with. In terms of market share, if you want to go with the safer of the two, Sanders leads the league in market share. He's got a 35% share of the targets. So whoever starts for them, it would be interesting, especially because he's the better deep threat. If Lynch plays, it could be interesting. And if Simeon plays, they already have the rapport. So a Lynch-Sanders stack isn't so bad against, a Falcons defense on the road that gives up a lot of points.
Yeah, just final stack thoughts because you were talking about that Oakland-San Diego game. I think a way to do it would be Carr, Cooper, Walford, and then maybe both of the San Diego receivers. Maybe go a full game stack here, and just hope that it's a shootout. That's kind of an interesting proposition. You could fill it out with some high upside guys because I know those San Diego receivers are cheap. That's kind of interesting. You go 4 or 5 deep on a game stack. It's paid off before. I know there have been weeks where a game goes to overtime or games 42-35, and if there's a game that's going to be 42-35 this week, I think you and I both agree it's going to be that one. Any final thoughts or advice you have for our viewers heading into this week?
No, we didn't booch anything this time, so we're good.
No, besides the graphic, we were booch free. So let's go out on a good note. Please check out that NFL trial that I tried to show you before. Again, that's rotocurve.com/NFL-trial. You get the whole NFL package, which is, includes position rankings, projections, cheat sheets, DVP rankings, points per attempt, and a million other things that you gotta, have the package for to see them. Optimize DFS lineups and DraftKings. From DraftKings and FanDuel, access to player ownership percentage. So please, please, please give the trial a try, I guess. Jim and I both have contributed to it. There's a lot of good people contributing to it. We got some ex-NFL players. We got some great, great writers. And we also have Josh Kalachi, too. So please make sure to check it out. I got to take a dig at him. That's all for us in week 5. Good luck this week. Let's have someone win $1 million, come back and say good things. Let's have one of us win $1 million. But until that time, we are out.